So, Wes.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Never been better, man. I'm excited this time. You got me on an exciting time in my life when I get to talk about this movie.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it, because I know the last time you and I sat down and talked about a Friday the 13th movie, the first one, you were not as excited.
It's stupid.
I understand. You made that very clear.
No, it's not stupid. It's not my favorite. If we eventually we'll have to rank the whole franchise, and spoiler alert, it's not going to be in my top 4 or 5. On the other hand, this one's up there for me. It's not. I'm not going to say if it's my number 1 or not. It's probably not, but it's up there.
Well, I'm glad you're excited to talk about this one, because I am too. Because like you, I do prefer Friday the 13th Part 2 over the original. Part 2.
We are simpatico.
Part 2, it follows a similar premise, with an unknown stalker killing a group of camp counselors at a training camp near Crystal Lake. And this film marks the debut of Jason Voorhees as the series' main antagonist.
All correct.
Originally, Friday the 13th Part 2 was intended to be an anthology film based on the Friday the 13th superstition. So Jason Voorhees originally had nothing to do with anything. However, after the popularity of the original film's surprise ending, the filmmakers opted to continue the story of the mythology surrounding Crystal Lake. And that trend would continue throughout the rest of the franchise.
Accurate.
And this takes us right into Friday the 13th Part 2. 2 months after the murders at Camp Crystal Lake, Alice is recovering from her traumatic experience.
Not very well.
No, not at all. But how would you take it?
Not very well.
I wouldn't either.
She seems to have a handle on things, but like even when she's just trying to take a nap, it's terrifying for her.
Yeah, she's having a nightmare, and we get a little bit of a recap of the first movie, at the very end of the first movie at least.
A little bit of a recap is you're being generous with your words.
You think it's too much recap?
It's too much of a recap, but this was before the big sequel craze of what will come after this. So having a sequel like this is a little bit more unique at this time frame than it will be. It's going to be saturated after this with all just sequels, and not just this horror movie. Most horror movies are trying to have sequels. I understand what they were doing, because they're like, maybe not everybody saw all this, and having a sequel come out a year later or a year and a half later or whatever it's kind of different. So let's show the first 10 minutes of the movie that was the number 1. And so I get it. Now, was it necessary? No, I don't think so.
Do you think it was for people that may not have seen Friday Part 1? Because this is clearly called Friday Part 2.
Yeah, I don't think people cared back then. I think it was all about just getting out to the theater, going to the drive-in.
Well, my question was, do you think it was for those folks, or do you think it was just to pad out the runtime just a little bit?
Noticing that it was like an hour and a half or less, without the 10 minutes, it would have been way less than that. So yeah, that's padding the runtime. So
Alice goes about her night, and she goes to her refrigerator, and when she opens the door to get some cat food, she finds the severed head of Pamela Voorhees and is murdered.
Decomposing.
Yes, and is murdered with an ice pick in her temple by an unknown assailant. Now, here's something for you. The reason Alice actress Adrienne King only appears for the opening scene is that she was dealing with a stalker at the time. She was being pursued by an obsessed fan after the success of the original Friday the 13th, and she wished her role to be as small as possible.
But not as small as what she was met with on the set. She didn't realize that she was going to die right there.
Oh, she didn't think she was going to die in the scene.
No, she did not know that she was going to die.
I gotcha. So 5 years after that, Paul Holt opens a school for camp counselors on the shore of Crystal Lake.
The young Jeff Daniels.
The camp is attended by Sandra and her boyfriend Jeff, who, after an encounter with Crazy Ralph...
Okay. And then over...
I told the others. They didn't believe me. You're all doomed. You're all doomed.
He's back.
I got names for them too. Bon Scott and Jailbait.
Who the hell's Bon Scott?
He has that hat on.
Yeah, who's Bon Scott?
Oh, he's the lead singer he was the original lead singer of AC/DC.
Oh, I see. Before Brian Johnson?
Yeah, and I think, gotcha. Or Brian Johnson. Which one wears that hat?
That's Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson. So it's Brian Johnson and Jailbait.
I gotcha, okay.
They're in the big ass truck, and they're excited to go meet Ted. What's his name going to be? Simply Red Ted. Brian Johnson is talking to Simply Red Ted, and all of a sudden...
Oh my God, they're towing us!
And this guy's not stopping. He doesn't care about AC/DC, apparently. A minute later, all of a sudden, we find out that it's Ted. Ted's behind the whole thing. Simply Red Ted is like, you guys are in God's country now. I'm Simply Red. What's up, Jailbait? How are you doing?
Also in attendance in this school are Scott, Terry, Mark, Vicky, and Paul's assistant slash girlfriend, Jenny.
Amy Steele.
Amy Steele.
She's from April Fool's Day.
She is. You are correct, sir.
It's a good movie.
There's also other trainees there, but they don't matter.
We see like other people that we're not introduced to, but so they all get together before all this, and the ones that we are introduced to are the ones that you just mentioned, and those are the characters that we're going to be following for the next hour and 20 minutes, hour and 18 minutes because of the 10-minute the 10-minute opening. Jenny shows up late in her bug, her VW bug. My bug is sick, she says. And Mr. Jeff Daniels, the fake Jeff Daniels, says, you showed up late. You're supposed to be my assistant. I'm going to take you aside right now in front of everybody. Which he does. He's a total dick. He takes her into the place in front of everybody and like takes her to task. And he's like, flirts with her.
Ginny, I was starting to worry about you.
Bullshit, Paul.
Now, the big thing that you need to remember about Jenny is that she is a child psychologist, or she's majoring in child psychology.
Yeah, she's studying it because
She's
he makes
studying
fun of
it.
her about it.
Yeah, but that comes into play later.
It does.
So around the campfire that night, Paul tells the counselors the legend of Jason Voorhees.
I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason.
The boy who drowned at Camp Crystal Lake in 1957.
Accurate.
Sounds about right. As Paul finishes the story, a man with a spear scares everyone, but it's revealed to be just Ted.
Let's call this a TED Talk. And by the way, yeah, he shows off his 9-pack or his 20-pack, and then when he takes off his mask, he looks funnier than when the mask was on.
So after the story and after the scare, Paul reassures everybody that Jason is dead and that Camp Crystal Lake is now condemned and off limits. So that night, Jenny sees someone lurking around the campgrounds, and it turns out to be Crazy Ralph.
I know that he was strangled with like some kind of barbed wire.
Yes, before he gets the chance to warn them by the unseen killer.
No one was more pleased than me. Sorry. I know that you're a fan.
Oh, you don't like Crazy Ralph?
No.
Oh, that's okay.
I think he's a cartoon character. I take this movie very serious, okay? I treat this like it's like Citizen Kane.
Okay, fair
No, he's fine. Now, I don't need him in every movie, so I was happy that he's not going to be in the next. Now, no one's in suspect mode yet. Like, no one's like thinking that anybody was murdered, but yeah, Jenny's on alert that there's strange goings-ons outside of the cabins.
So the following day, we get a lot of the character establishment.
With Brown, it sits on a piano.
Your face.
Beethoven's last movement.
Ew.
I like the characters better in this film than I do the first one.
I do too. I do think this has more interesting characters. The girls are hotter. The dudes are weirder.
So Jeff and Sandra sneak off to Camp Crystal Lake.
So they take a trek over towards Camp Blood, apparently, which who knows what lake they're at the moment. And they're trekking through the woods and they find a dead dog.
Oh my God.
What is it?
Looks like a dog.
Who we don't know if it's Muffin or not.
Oh, that's right. One of the camp counselors does have a dog on hand.
Yeah, it's already been mentioned 8 times in the movie, but we forgot to mention it once. They see a mutilated dog, and Brian Johnson says in his best AC/DC voice that dog did not shake him all night long because he wasn't even sure if it was a dog.
Right.
And Jailbait's like, well, whatever, we should keep going. And all of a sudden, hey, what are you two young'uns doing around here? And we get, what's his name? Deputy
Winslow.
He's the wet blanket.
He catches them and returns them to the camp. He has a little chat with Jeff Daniels about their punishment.
You're not even going to reprimand him? No punishment? What kind of place is this?
Ginny,
Yes, Paul.
no seconds on dessert for Jeff and Sandra tonight.
So on his way back, Deputy Winslow spots a masked man wearing a burlap sack running across the road. Winslow stops his car, gets out, starts chasing him through the woods. Eventually, he does find a shack. He goes in, he starts looking around, and it's just built from random parts and metal scrap, and it's just the shittiest looking thing you've ever seen.
Yes, sir.
He opens one of the doors, and he's shocked by what he sees. Oh my God, is what he says, I think. And out of nowhere, from behind him, the unnamed killer draws a hammer and smashes it right into the back of Winslow's head. Back at the camp, Paul offers the others one last night on the town before the training begins. 6 stay behind, including Jeff and Sandra, who are forced to stay as punishment for sneaking off.
Jailbait and Brian Johnson get to stay home and sing You
Kumbaya.
Shook Me All Night Long.
So Terry goes skinny dipping, only to have her clothes stolen by Scott. He gets caught in a rope trap.
No longer funny, Scott.
Help!
and Terry runs off to find a knife to cut him down. While she does, Scott has his throat slit with a machete, and Terry returns only to be killed off screen.
Scott.
So at the bar,
Yeah, you and I discussed it before, just offhandedly for a second. How many honky-tonk casinos are in rural New Jersey?
I mean, there might be a couple just to accommodate for people that enjoy that sort of thing.
I guess.
Is it a thriving business out there? Probably not. They're at the bar and they're just discussing Jason. And Ginny sort of dives into sort of his psychology.
No, what if there is some kind of boy or beast running around Camp Crystal Lake? I mean, let's try to think beyond the legend, put it in real terms. I mean, what would it be like today? Some kind of out-of-control psychopath?
She does.
What Jason would be like mentally.
She kind of shits all over their point. I think even the young Jeff Daniels was like saying that even his story, that story that I told at the campfire was pretty much bullshit. Jason, there's no way, blah, 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 blah. And she kind of delves into what if, yeah, why not?
What if?
Yeah, and she does a good job.
There is one question that I have, though, because not Jeff Daniels or young Jeff Daniels keeps saying that Jason is a legend, but they know for a fact that Pamela Voorhees came back to kill those camp counselors twice.
That should be a fact in this, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be a myth. He should be real.
Yep.
So why does he keep calling him a myth? I don't understand.
We don't know. He doesn't take it seriously is what we're meant to believe.
Okay.
So we're at the bar. The Smoky Boys are playing. Ted thinks the bartender's after him. They have the discussion that we just mentioned. We cut back to the camp and they're actually having a good time in this one. They're arm wrestling. The guy in the wheelchair is being hit on big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
Mark is his name. Vicky is her name.
What do you want to play for?
Position.
That's right. So Mark is getting hit on by Vicky.
Vicky is all about Mark.
Brian Johnson is being very much hit on by Jailbait.
Jeff, don't wear yourself out. You want to wrestle? Come with me.
And I think she even says to him, if you want to wrestle, let's go upstairs. So it kind of dissipates for a minute or whatever. And it's between Meals on Wheels and Vicky. And Vicky basically does everything besides ask him, does your cock work?
Just your legs, huh? Is everything else okay?
Oh, I do all right.
Yes.
They go into why he's a paraplegic. Yeah, so she's just hitting on him left and right.
I don't blame her. It's a good looking fellow right there.
Yeah, he's a good looking fellow, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
And he says, I do all right. She's like, okay, your cock works. We are fully engaged.
And she's about to light up a joint. She tries to offer it to him, but he's in training.
I'm in training, remember?
For what?
He's training.
For...
I have no idea.
But I don't think he ever says, and we never find out.
We don't really care. At this point, then, Brian Johnson does leave with Jailbait. Just those two. Talk about fingers, talk about sex, talk about working cocks.
There's only 4 of them left. There's Jeff, Sandra, Mark, and Vicky, and everybody's ready to fuck.
They're all getting ready to fuck. So Vicky was like, well, I need to go do some stuff real quick, which we didn't know she was going to be put on.
The ugliest pair of underwear ever.
And she was going to spray perfume in her crotch. So that's what she was going to do. What can Brown do for you?
Mark is waiting for Vicky to get ready. He rolls outside, and then from behind, he gets a machete that goes around into his forehead. And then his chair spins around, and he goes falling back down the steps in a stunt that I'm still extremely impressed by.
Well, the story was, behind the scenes, was that after this all happened, his cock did stop working.
The killer goes into the main cabin, grabs the spear, walks upstairs.
It's Jailbait, Sandra, and Brian Johnson, Jeff. I think it was a copycat kill from a movie called The Twitch of the Death Nerve, aka Bay of Blood, that happened a couple of years beforehand.
Okay.
Where 2 people were in the middle of having sex and had a spear go through both of them. And I think that they were doing that as an homage to that movie because it's a cool concept, I guess, for a slasher film. But overall, the MPA was like, the kill sucks. We don't like it. It's way too violent. Sorry. So that's all we get is the implication.
So Wes, being the giant video game fan that you are, you've certainly heard of Friday the 13th, the game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, one of the loading screens for the game is a shot of those two in the bed with the spear through both of them. So you do get to kind of see.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Vicky returns to look for Mark, only to find nothing aside from a sacked Jason hiding under the sheets.
She sees him, and I think this is the first time we get that really good view of the sack lunch Jason.
Yes, this is the first time that we see Jason, at least from the top half, because up until this point, all we've seen is his feet or his hands or something.
Like a Tarantino movie, all we see is feet.
Exactly. And then she, unfortunately, is the next to go. Just a simple knife stabbing. You don't see anything. You just see her reaction. We also get a nice clean shot of Jason actor Steve Dash's busted up thumbnail.
Either he just did this for 20 minutes with a lighter, or he smashed it.
He smashed the shit out of it, yeah. Later, Ginny and Paul return, leaving Ted behind at the bar.
And he does say to Redhead Ted, after this place closes, you come home, or you come back to the camp, all right? And he goes, yeah, for sure. By the way, imagine them coming back to the camp and finding all these people.
Do you think Ted would have been the survivor, had he come back instead of Ginny?
The final boy?
The final boy.
No, yeah, probably so.
So Ginny and Paul return. They leave Ted at the bar, and they find the place in disarray.
And they start, I think that young Jeff Daniels starts thinking that there's pranks going on.
What is this, a joke?
They wouldn't do anything like this.
The lights go out, and the killer ambushes Paul, knocking him out. He chases Ginny throughout the camp and into the woods, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because this scene has always confused me, even since I was a kid. There's a scene around this point. She's hiding under the bed. She sees a rat run up to her. It sort of brushes across her face. A little puddle of what I'm assuming is urine starts to leak out from under the bed.
Yep.
Now, is that Jenny's urine or the rat's urine?
It's Jenny.
Okay, my follow-up question, is Jenny peeing because of Jason or the rat?
I think that she's terrified of being killed and terrified of rats at the same time. And it's a double entendre of scare the piss out of you. It's a weird thought. It actually is not a weird thought. It's a normal thought, because I thought the same thing the first time I saw it. But I think she's deathly afraid of rats, and she's deathly afraid of being slaughtered. And by the way, at least it wasn't poop.
He jumps up on that flimsy little wicker chair to surprise her, and then he falls on his face after the legs give way.
It's pretty good. Between that and the piss, it was a pretty, unless you're like a little kid watching this for the first time, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's pretty silly.
Yeah, it's pretty silly.
If there was any sort of tension up until that point, that sort of ruined it.
A little bit, but it continues on for a couple minutes here.
A couple minutes too long.
I know, I agree.
Yeah.
Not nearly as bad as the first one.
So Jenny eventually comes across the same shack that Deputy Winslow came across.
Carl Winslow.
One thing that stuck out to me as she was approaching the shack, she's calling out for help from anybody inside.
Please help me!
I'm just thinking that anybody that would willingly live in that place, you probably don't want their help.
Probably some guy that would say, "You want to come in my shack, do you? It's a death wish. Push a lotion on the basket." Yeah, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
After barricading herself inside, she finds an altar with Pamela Voorhees' severed head on it, surrounded by a pile of bodies, her friends' bodies.
It's a slowly decomposing head.
Very slow. 5 years. That thing should be practically a skeleton, if not a skeleton. Am I wrong?
One would argue it'd be a skeleton by now.
Yeah. But that thing it was pretty meaty.
Yeah, there was way too much meat on it. There was more meat on that face than there was on the abs of Simply Red Ted.
Realizing that Jason Voorhees is the killer, Ginny puts that child psychology to use. This is where that comes into play.
As they made that, the joke about when she got to camp late. Now you understand what's really going on here.
Ginny puts on Pamela's sweater and tries to psychologically convince Jason that she is his mother. And for some reason, it works.
Jason! It's all done, Jason. You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased.
Succeeds.
It works.
Yeah.
It's a stretch. Betsy Palmer does return as Pamela Voorhees, and you and I discussed in the first Friday video her reasoning for accepting the role in the first place. What was her reasoning for deciding to come back? Do you know that story? Because I don't.
I think No, but we're going to assume that Steve Miner, the consummate professional, probably was able to get her a decent paycheck just to do a cameo. She reprised her role for a very short, a little bit of whatever. And
this is the last time, too, because they did ask her to come back in future sequels, and she always refused. This was the last time. After the realization that he's been duped, he sort of he starts to pick up that pickaxe, and Jenny raises the machete and brings it down on him. Paul suddenly returns. Jenny! Completely out of nowhere. Paul fights Jason for a little bit, but Jason easily incapacitates him. It's over pretty
stupid.
Now, just as Jason is about to kill Paul with the pickaxe, Jenny picks up the machete and slams it down into Jason's shoulder. Seemingly killing him. Paul and Jenny return to the cabin and they hear something outside. Thinking that Jason followed them, they open the door, only to find Terry's dog, Muffin.
Yeah, Muffin's there.
Muffin survived. She wasn't the mutilated dog in the forest. She made it.
Brian Johnson did not find Muffin dead.
Now, just as they give a sigh of relief, the big surprise ending happens. An unmasked Jason bursts through the window from behind and grabs Jenny. Now, Jason's look is going to change throughout the course of the series. Whatever makeup artist is working on the movie, they make whatever version of Jason they want. So this is our first look at an unmasked Jason. Wes, what are your thoughts?
Rocky Dennis. It looked like a people under the stair. One side of the face was weird and missing some hair. Kind of like how people have their haircut now with a half-shaved head, like Skrillex, only a little bit more mongoloidal.
Yeah, I was thinking Hills Have Eyes when I first saw it.
Yeah, Hills Have Eyes, for sure. It looks like the people that have eyes under the hills. Yeah, the people under the stairs that are from the hills.
People under the stairs who have eyes that spit on your grave.
That spit on your grave that lived in the last house on the left.
Exactly. Jenny awakens to be loaded into an ambulance, and she calls out for Paul, who is nowhere to be seen. We do not get in this movie the final fate of Paul.
Yeah, Jeff Daniels lives on to be in the movie Speed.
Back in the shack, Pamela's head remains on its altar, but Jason is also nowhere to be found.
We don't know what happens to Jason. Yeah.
We have no idea what happens to Jason after that. They never made another one. And that, Wes, is how the movie ends.
That's how the movie ends. And by the way, Ted is probably still alive. He comes back. Let's just assume that he comes back the next morning with that bartender and a couple other people that we had barely met who we didn't see die. All my friends are dead. Look at my abs.
So, Wes, how would you grade Friday the 13th, Part 2?
Much more kindly than I was to the original. I didn't give it a good grade for the original one. This is basically laying the track to what the series will follow throughout the rest of the series, for better or worse. And I love it. This actually laid the groundwork. This and like Halloween 2 and a couple other ones and like The Burning and stuff like that. This is what a slasher movie should be. You got hot chicks, you got weird dudes, you got weird stuff. It's pretty funny. I think it's funny. The people are pretty likable for the most part. It's a B+ to me, and it's one of my favorites of the series. How say you, sir?
It's not one of my favorites in the series, but it's not my least favorite. My personal feeling is it takes a little too much from the original in certain points, but it does improve on the original as well. That's why I'm not saying I dislike this film, because I don't dislike this film. I do find myself enjoying parts of it. I definitely think the characters, they're still a little one note, but they're an improvement over the original's no notes. We went from bland to adding a little bit of spice. Right?
Yeah, a little bit of spice. Yeah, there's a little paprika.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit more, and this would have been a good flavor. I would probably give this movie a C.